Although I'm not the biggest fan of the classic Wizard of Oz film, I do like the story, and I'm always looking for new adaptations or interpretations, particularly animated ones, because I think with animation, the ability to be creative is limitless. And what I've found is that a lot of adaptations, particularly shorter adaptations, always focus on different elements and bring something a little bit different to the story. Now, I have to say, I've never read the book, so I'm never quite sure which elements are from the original book. But it's always interesting to see the differences, and usually that means it's quite fascinating, and that's not an exception with The Wizard of Oz from 1991, written by Roger Scott Olsen, based, of course, on the story by L. Frank Baum. And we have a very small voice cast, at least as far as IMDb is concerned. We have Candi Milo, who voices the Good Witch of the North. We have Terri Hawkes as Dorothy. And we also have the brilliant Jim Cummings as the Cowardly Lion and Flying Monkey. There are various characters missing there, so I'm not entirely sure who else voiced. If you do have any more information, please feel free to let me know. But of course, it follows the classic story of Dorothy, who ends up in Oz and meets the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man, and they're off to see the wizard. And of course, we have the Good Witch and the Bad Witch and the Munchkins and Toto, of course. And all of the basic elements of the Wizard of Oz are there. I think the pacing is very good. I won't go into too much detail about what else happens in the narrative. I'm assuming that most people have seen The Wizard of Oz, but if you haven't, I would say watch the classic film before watching this. Even though I don't love it, I do have such a big appreciation for how monumental it was and how problematic some of the filming was. It's an exceptionally fascinating film, but in terms of entertainment, it's just not one that I've ever loved. Even as a child, I thought it was okay, but from a historical perspective, really fascinating. But the point is, if you're looking for another version once you've seen that, this is a fun way to visit the story. I quite like the animation style. The voice acting is very good. Dorothy is a very likable character, which is not always the case with animated Wizards of Oz. Wizard of Oz's? I've seen a few of them, and sometimes Dorothy's just quite bland and not that interesting. But here she was okay. I quite liked her. I think that the pacing was very good. It got all of the key elements in. It wasn't very scary, which I think is important because there are some versions of Wizard of Oz. In fact, the classic film has pretty scary elements, but there are some that are maybe slightly darker than others. But this one's rated universal. It's pretty tame. But the pacing's good. It's consistent. It covers all of the main elements. The characters are very likable. Dorothy, as I said, was very likable as well, which I think is important. But actually, interestingly, with this one, I felt like it was definitely a strong ensemble rather than Dorothy being the lead. And I think that's a really good thing. Not all adaptations are like that. Some definitely feel like it's the Dorothy film where the other characters are there to support her. But in this one, I feel like the main characters all got a pretty equal balance, and that was quite nice to see, and I rather enjoyed it. Toto was very cute. Not the kind of dog I'd envisioned. If I close my eyes and see Toto, it's not that kind of dog, but it doesn't affect my enjoyment. It's fun. It's not the one version I'd recommend if you've never seen Wizard of Oz, but if you are a fan of Wizard of Oz and are just looking for a new way to enjoy the story, I'd say the 1991 version is definitely worth going for. It may not be the most exciting or perfect film I've ever seen, but it ticks all of the boxes and it's quite a pleasant way to spend, give or take, half an hour.